But now
there's one more thing.
This last item, this
has kept us from staying there in the past.
Yes, it has, and this is why I can't recommend this campground to anybody. Hello everybody, welcome to 54 Nights. We are going to talk a little bit about Elk Meadow Lodge and RV Resort. We've stayed here a couple of times on our most recent trip. It was 11 days, I believe, or 11 nights. And our last time out there, it was basically the equivalent amount of time. So we spent a lot of time at this campground. It is located on the west end of Estes Park, and I think we'll just start off right there with the good. And the main good is location. Like I said, it's on the west end of Estes Park. It is about a mile from the visitor center.
Like 3 miles or something from the
2.4 miles from the toll booth to get into Rocky Mountain National Park. On top of all that, it is about 2 miles from the campground to the downtown Estes Park parking lot, or one of the parking lots. So location is awesome. Mm-hmm. And in the campground, you look off to the south and you see Long's Peak, the tallest peak in Rocky Mountain National Park, 14,259 feet. Bet you didn't think I'd know that, did you? The view is outstanding.
And it's not just to the south. The view to the west also is
really, I think, in our opinion, Elk Meadow has the best view of all the campgrounds in Estes Park.
Yeah, definitely.
We've stayed at the KOA. We've stayed at Spruce Lake, which is owned by the same company.
And it's only about a mile away.
Yeah. And we've stayed at Mary's Lake.
And at a cabin.
And the views don't compare to what you get at Elk Meadow.
No, I agree.
Even Spruce Lake, which is about a mile away, there's kind of a hill in the way of Long's, so you
have the Big Thompson River at Spruce Lake.
Yeah. But so that is probably the number one thing you get at Elk Meadow is the view, and the location. Those two things combined, which I mean they're kind of intermingled. Mm-hmm. Every morning between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. they have trash pickup. You don't have to go find the dumpster. You just take a trash bag, set it out in front, and these guys are cruising on their little John Deere four-wheelers for 2 hours. They're just cruising the parking lot waiting for somebody to set trash out.
Yeah, they got to pick it up pretty fast because the birds and the bears will get it, so they're constantly going by.
And speaking of the guys picking up the trash, you look at the Google reviews and you're going to see a few people complaining about the employees they've had to deal with. It has been our experience. Some of the nicest people in the world. Mm-hmm. I mean, really, we have not had a bad experience with an employee at Elk Meadow. That's not I'm not saying that those people didn't. One of the things that Elk Meadow does is they've got a lot of work campers, so it's very possible that they had a sour work camper.
Right. You can't really hold that against them if it's every now and then thing that they don't know about.
We look at things differently. I can hold it against them. Let me zoom in just a little bit just to get on our beautiful faces. So yeah, the employees have always been nice. They have a playground, a nice playground.
It's a nice playground. I mean, they kind of fit everything into a little spot, so it's for older kids. Not really a toddler playground, but
yeah, that's true. That's true. They probably could use a few toddler type things out there, but they have a pool. I don't know if it's heated or not. It doesn't say if it is on the website. I would have to assume that it is, because in Colorado, especially in the high country, if you don't have a heated pool, you don't have a pool. And they do have a hot tub. They've got mini golf.
Yeah. And I think they just go up to the office. From what it looked like, they just went up to the office and got clubs, and it's free, I think.
Oh, that's good.
And then the horseshoes. They've got horseshoes that are laying out there. You don't even have to go to the office. They're just laying out there, so you can just go out there and play.
A dog park.
Mm-hmm. Nice dog park. No benches anymore, but
really,
yeah, they got rid of the benches. That's uncomfortable. You have to stand there.
That's not good.
No.
They have cabins. I can't remember how many. I want to say 7 cabins, and they're
really cute.
They're nice little cabins. They don't have air conditioning, which most of the time in Colorado, in the high country, air conditioning is not needed in the cabins. Unfortunately, this summer, they're got record highs going on in Colorado, and they really needed AC. But I mean, I understand why they don't have AC. It's an added expense that, 19 years out of 20, they don't need it.
Right.
So, the name is a little misleading as far as Elk Meadow Lodge. You think they've got a hotel type lodge there. From what I saw, they don't. That lodge is for entertainment purposes.
Which there was no entertaining going on because it's 2020.
Yeah, 2020. We don't even say COVID-19 anymore. We just say 2020.
Yeah. The swimming pools and the hot tubs, same thing. They were all closed.
But you still got charged full price.
Yeah.
Just saying.
And not everybody had the swimming pools closed. A lot of the campgrounds had open swimming pools.
Yeah, they did.
Which I'm not saying it's bad that they had them closed at all. Not at all.
No, it's
but they
just,
didn't have to clean water or do anything, and they didn't.
We still had to pay for it.
Yeah, they didn't take a couple dollars off.
Yeah. Which, speaking of paying for it, as far as their rates, they're kind of middle of the road as when Estes Park is considered. I think the most expensive one, I believe, in Estes Park would be the Jellystone on the other end, far end of town.
Which is a resort.
But $75 a night or something like that is what we were charged. So, that
it's high.
Yeah, it is high if you're
not just an elevation.
if you're staying by side of the interstate, that's high, but it is in Estes Park and it is competitive with everybody else.
And not just what you might be breathing in Colorado.
Oh my gosh, really? The unfortunate part of that price, on this trip we traveled with a motorcycle. Our motorhome and the motorcycle was in the trailer, and when we got to our destination, rolled the motorcycle out of the trailer, I got charged $5 a day for an extra vehicle. People joke around about KOA standing for keep on adding. Well, Elk Meadow Lodge and RV Resort kept on adding. $5 a day for an extra vehicle. It was not an extra vehicle. It was my primary vehicle. It is like if I had a Jeep, it's still my only vehicle. But they charged me $5 extra a day for that. Now, remember what I said at the beginning? We were there for like 11 nights. That's $55 that they charged me for a vehicle that was not an additional vehicle, that was a third the size of anybody else's vehicle.
Yeah.
I could park it beside the camper and take up no extra space.
Was it because you had the trailer? Like, if somebody had a car, would they have gotten charged?
The lady asked me, will you be parking it in your trailer? No, I'm not parking it in my trailer. Why would I park it in my trailer? Well, that's going to be $5 extra a night. Wow. Okay.
So we don't know that if you have a car, if that would be extra.
No, it wouldn't be extra.
It wouldn't?
No.
So they're considering the trailer like...
They're considering the trailer a vehicle, which last time I checked, a vehicle kind of had to be able to drive it around. Yeah. But a little disappointing. It's a decent campground. It really is. It's a nice campground. Honestly, it's not at the bottom of my list when I go to reserve a spot in Estes Park, but it's like almost next to last. The bottom of the list, just in case you're curious, is the Estes Park KOA, because you can't open the door without dinging the neighbor's camper.
So why did you reserve it then? See, it's my favorite.
Is it?
Yep, it's my favorite campground.
Well, because Mary's Lake, because of COVID-19, we couldn't reserve it.
Or were they closed?
They were not accepting reservations at the
Oh.
time. And when you go to Estes Park, by the way, folks, you need to reserve early. I'm not talking a year early, but you need to be a few months early in making your reservations just to ensure you get one.
And reservations into the park. This is not what this video is about, but let me just add that, because we can't say this enough. Make sure before you go in, you get reservation times for inside the park, like a month before you go out there.
But that's all the good. I mean, and it's good. It's a decent campground. It really is. Now let's kind of drift off into the bad. And you're going to see this. If you look at the Google reviews, you will see this comment. It is dusty. Mm-hmm. And
this dog, we had to wash him when we got home. He was red. I mean, he was, both
brown,
dogs were
brown, whatever color the soil is out there.
Yeah, he was not white.
It is dusty.
Day
It is
one.
extremely dusty. And I guess that kind of leads me into the resort. The sign at the front of the campgrounds, RV resort. There's no regulations. There's no standard that you have to go by to call a campground a resort. But there is a mental image. And when I picture an RV resort, I kind of picture those uppity campgrounds in Florida where everything's paved and there's green grass, a 2-foot strip of green grass between every site.
There's grass up at the office.
And their activities are organized, and you know what's going on every day on a daily.
Kids are entertained.
Yeah, and just
from the campground, not from you.
Just the whole resort package, which Elk Meadow Lodge and RV Resort is not the whole resort package. It's just not. If they had entertainment at the lodge during those 2 weeks, week and a half, whatever we were there, we didn't know about it. And I'm not just saying it from this experience. It's also from our last trip out there when there was no COVID-19 or anything else. If there was entertainment, we never knew about it. It wasn't in anything we were given, so,
And that's just a name. I mean, it is. It's an expectation that's not met, but it's not a horrible thing. That particular thing.
Right?
Is.
No. It's not necessarily
it's worth pointing
horrible,
out for sure.
but you do need to point that out.
Mm-hmm.
And then they've got a lot of policies like they're a resort. Unfortunately, there's not consistent enforcement of these policies.
I don't know that that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, well, we've got a dog fence. For those that watch this channel regularly, we've got a dog fence that goes around. It's kind of elaborate. Takes 15-20 minutes to set up most of the time. But one of the campground policies was no dog fences. And I mean,
we knew that ahead of time.
Yeah.
So we were
not a big deal. I mean, it's
a big deal for us, but it's not something
yeah,
that
but
we're
it's
upset
not.
about.
Yeah, it's not something to get upset about.
Yeah.
It's just like, well, dadgummit,
Yeah.
So, seeing that policy, we didn't set up the fence. You cruise around the campground for those 11 nights, and there are other people in the campground with dog fences set up.
Yeah, so we're like, okay, well, I guess we could set ours up, but we don't want to set it all up. He said 15-20 minutes, and then have them come say you can't set it up.
Yeah.
So it's just
it's
hard to decide what you should be doing.
So consistent enforcement of policies. And one of the things that isn't listed on the policies that I have seen on the reviews for this campground is carpet. Most of us RVers have that nice little carpet thing we roll out in front of the RV, so we're not tracking all that dirt into the camper, which, did we mention, is dusty at this campground. There were there were a couple of
The guy
reviews.
beside us had 2 big carpets.
Yeah, and there were a couple of reviews where people were told that they needed to pull their carpet up because they're killing the grass.
There's no grass, by the way.
Yeah.
Unless you're camped in front of the office, there's no grass.
There's no grass. And this isn't, I mean...
Look who's walking up behind us.
Uh-oh.
We're back.
Yeah, sorry about that. So, basically, inconsistent enforcement of policies, and I guess in some cases, according to Google reviews, policies that don't exist. The next on the bad list, and I've seen this on reviews talking about the campground is dated. And I'm going to assume they're speaking of the hookups specifically.
Well, they haven't changed anything since, when was the last time we stayed
Yeah,
there?
I mean, they really
Long
haven't.
time ago.
I mean, I think since the last time we were there many, many years ago, I think maybe the bathhouse facilities have been upgraded and the playground, but as far as the campground itself, nothing has
roads,
changed.
all that,
Right?
yeah.
The rutted out roads, and their ruts you probably wouldn't notice in a car. I was on the motorcycle. I noticed those ruts.
Yeah.
Okay. And well, I mean, it's kind of off topic, but not. There's a lot of prairie dogs out there, and
Which is fun to watch.
yeah,
And rabbits.
One of our neighbors bent one of his leveling jacks on his motorhome when he went to level the RV because that jack went down into a prairie dog hole that was on the RV pad.
So what do you think should happen? Because I don't want him to, get them all rounded up and kill them.
I don't know, but I would think if they paved the place, it would. I mean, it wouldn't get rid of them, but
Maybe some thick concrete that would. I wonder.
the holes wouldn't be in the middle of the
Probably.
RV parking.
Yeah.
But
They were really cute. They were the little bitty ones, whatever they're called.
anyway,
They're fun to watch.
back to what I was talking about was the hookups. The sewer connection was at an angle. And what I find fascinating, if you look at the Elk Meadows policies, it tells you that per Colorado law, each unit must have a 3-inch sewer hookup, which they have. The sewer connection must be sealed to comply with Larimer County and state regulations. Our sewer connection, there was no possible way you could have put a donut or even my screw-in connection on there and still connect the sewer hose. You couldn't do it. As a matter of fact, our sewer hose was just pretty much laying in there, and we had to drain real slow to make sure it didn't ooze down onto the...
Don't use the word ooze. It makes it worse.
I like it, ooze. So it was impossible to comply with this policy because of the way the campground was built. You know, why they had that sewer connection at that angle, I don't know. There are other solutions. I mean, you can do a lot of magical things with PVC pipe. But the cable connection, you had a cable sticking up out of the ground. Wasn't even mounted on a post. It was just a cable sticking out of the ground with a splitter on it so that 2 different campsites could use that same cable hanging out of the ground. We didn't hook up to cable, so I can't really comment on that, but just my experience with coax and splitters, the reception was probably not good, but I can't say that for sure. The Wi-Fi. Okay, I mean, RVers know campground Wi-Fi for the most part is a joke. It
Yeah.
really is. If you're, at a good place, you can surf the internet uninterrupted.
Like certain times of the day, whenever there's not a lot of people on.
Occasionally, you might be able to watch a YouTube video, but for the most part, campground Wi-Fi is not good, and there was no exception with Elk Meadow. The campground Wi-Fi was atrocious. It was actually our cell phone data was 2 to 4 times faster than the Wi-Fi. Download speeds, upload speeds, and ping. The city library, you go sit in the city library parking lot, and the Wi-Fi was so good there, you could stream a movie in HD.
We didn't.
No, we didn't, but I mean, it was awesome
Yeah.
sitting there. So, yeah, the campground Wi-Fi is not good. So, if you need Wi-Fi, if you're working from your RV and you need Wi-Fi connection, I would not rely on the Wi-Fi that Elk Meadow has. All that bad stuff right there, it's really not that bad. I mean, a lot of it is kind of typical of a lot of different campgrounds. You're not going to get a perfect campground.
Right.
But now
There's one more thing.
This last item, this has
kept us from staying there in the past.
yes, it has, and this is why I can't recommend this campground to anybody.
I do, with this caveat.
Yeah, but see, we have different morals.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. There's no moral as long as I explain this
Okay.
to them.
Your deposit at most campgrounds, I think really at every campground that we've ever stopped at, the deposit was one night. And the policies varied on that deposit. If you cancel within X amount of hours, then you don't get it back, or 2 days, well, you get part of it back, or you get it back except for a $5 service fee or whatever. That's just that's your typical one night deposit. There's nothing unordinary about that.
And remember what we're about to tell you. This goes for Spruce Lake also, which is owned by them, which is about probably a little bit less than a mile away.
Yeah.
So what we're about to tell you, it goes for both campgrounds.
Yeah. So with Elk Meadow, your deposit is half of your stay. So in our case, an 11-night stay, our deposit was $480. Here's the whole crux of it, though. You don't get that money back
At all.
when you make that reservation and you put that deposit down. It does not matter at all what happens. If the campground burns down, you are not getting that money back. And it tells you that they tell you up front.
Yeah.
You don't get the money back. Now you can reschedule your vacation if you can't make it. You're not going to get the money back, so you can reschedule it for a $35 fee. So
Even if there's a pandemic.
yeah, let's get into that piece just a little bit since she's going to go there. You can find this information on the Colorado Better Business Bureau page. You can find it within the different review websites. COVID-19 hits, and people have to cancel because of COVID-19. They're not getting their money back.
Yeah, if the airlines are shut down, I mean, there's so many things. You know what all happened with COVID.
And a lot of people were just like, no, I can't go out in this mess, so I have to cancel. Elk Meadow don't care. You don't get your money back.
You don't get part of your money
No,
back. You get nothing.
You can pay $35 to reschedule, though. I mean, in all fairness, you can pay $35 more to reschedule, but you're not getting your money back.
Is there a minimum time you have to reschedule?
I don't know. I don't know. That's
curious.
not clear.
Like if it's
Within a year
or your
or-
lifetime.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that is stated clearly on the website, and when they call you, they state that clearly. So you understand that you're giving them this money. Whether or not you're going, they get that money. The thing is, early on in COVID-19, Colorado had some mandates that they issued, so Elk Meadow could not open their restrooms. Their bathhouses had to remain closed for a certain period of time. So with that in mind, they couldn't allow campers to come to the campground if they didn't have a self-contained RV. So tent campers, a lot of pop-up campers, and a lot of older campers couldn't they couldn't allow them to camp there because they didn't have their own bathroom. So the campground, Elk Meadow, canceled their reservations, and those people did not get their money back. Those people would have to pay a $35 fee to reschedule during a time when Colorado mandates weren't closing bathrooms.
Now, where did you see this on Better Business Bureau?
Better Business Bureau and the review sites.
Okay.
And the responses from Elk Meadow.
People weren't real thrilled with this, by the way.
No. And the responses from Elk Meadow were not by any stretch of the imagination apologetic. They were just simply, look, you knew when you made the reservation, you can pay $35 to reschedule. They didn't care, okay? Elk Meadow did not care. All you have to do is just read their Better Business Bureau response or their responses on some of the reviews at these sites. So you got to keep that in mind. You're gambling. Depending on how long your stay is, for us it would have been $480 that we were gambling. I knew that ahead of time. I knew what their policy was, and I knew how unbending they are on that policy.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I was gambling $480.
And like I said, that has seriously kept us from staying there in the past.
Yes.
But they don't care because there's somebody else that's going to stay there.
Yeah. It's not, I mean...
Especially this year.
Yeah, so you got to keep that in mind when you're making a reservation for Elk Meadow Lodge and RV Resort.
What would your favorite campground out there be in Estes Park? Mary's Lake?
Yeah. And if we were more self-sufficient for these longer trips, we could stay in the national park, which would just beat every other campground to death.
Yeah.
But for these 2-week stays, 11-night stays, whatever, staying in the national park for that extended amount of time, it would be more trouble than what it was worth.
Oh yeah,
So,
definitely. It's not like there was a place to go dump down there.
Yeah, and a lot of them don't have electric hookups, so we've got the residential fridge, and you can't run the generator, so the batteries would end up.
And there were record highs.
Yeah, but that is it for Elk Meadow Lodge and RV Resort.
I'm personally glad Mary's Lake. I mean, I wouldn't have been glad if something had happened we couldn't have gone, obviously.
Yeah.
But I'm personally glad that Mary's Lake wasn't taking reservations and we got to go there because it is my favorite campground. I mean, as long as
As long as we can make it, as long as we can get there,
right,
it's our favorite campground.
Yeah.
But if we ever have to cancel,
and I mean, I make that. I do recommend it. I tell people what we're telling you. I mean, I tell them everything. I mean, the good and the bad. Here it is laid out. But it is my favorite campground, so.
Yep.
As far as staying in.
So I mean, you make the decision. If you want to make that gamble, make that gamble. I mean, it's a personal decision.
Apparently, I'll never get to stay there again.
No, that's not true. I said it's still on my list.
Okay.
I mean, the KOA is not on my list.
No.
The KOA, if that's the only
If you're
thing
tent
left.
camping to the KOA would be cool.
No.
It is by the road.
No, the stuff I've seen on that, we're going off on a tangent. We'll just let it go.
Do that some other time.
Yeah, we'll let it go.
Okay. I walked down there. I thought it was pretty. So.
Yeah, but it smells like horse.
Oh, you got the stables right there. Okay.
Yep.
I gotcha.
Okay, guys, we're going to stop going off on tangent because we get bad-mouthed already because we seem
We
to
get
be
bad mouth? People bad mouth us?
Yeah, for being long-winded.
We're not long winded.
I think we're long-winded.
I don't think so.
I think we're long-winded. I don't think it
we're
warrants people
all
bad
long winded.
But anyway, catch y'all down the trail.
Bye.